As the sixth episode of The Day of the Jackal begins, Attila speaks to the jackal who is tied up. Attila ends up dropping him, following an inability to communicate. Attila asks him about the weapon before leading him outside. They go inside, where Attila calls Gabor to tell him about the man he caught. Laszlo is asked to speak to the foreigner. The jackal explains that he can pay them money. Laszlo and the other man agree to come. Gabor and Laszlo are stopped by the police at a roadblock on their way. Attila tries to offer the jackal something to eat while they wait. Attila ends up jamming food into his mouth until he's attacked. Gabor calls Attila to tell him to be careful around the stranger, but he's already dead. The jackal leaves with his gun. He tries one of Attila's vehicles, but it won't start. He has to hide in another when the other men arrive. The jackal manages to get that vehicle started just as Gabor fires shots through the window. Gabor checks the vehicle and gets shot from under it. Laszlo is frightened and doesn't do anything. He apologizes to the jackal before agreeing to drive him somewhere. Bianca Pullman and Vince Pine leisurely hang out at Norman's compound. Vince says he's wiped the computer. They learn about 2 bodies being found. Bianca is convinced it's the jackal. Meanwhile, the jackal tries to use Attila's phone, but he doesn't know the passcode. The jackal throws it out and asks for Laszlo's phone. He uses Laszlo's phone to call Nuria, who is with Marissa. The jackal admits he's managed to get himself into a lot of trouble. He's not 100% sure he's going to make it. Nuria questions where he is. The jackal says he's in Budapest, Hungary. Nuria wants to come and find him. The jackal asks her to do something with the back room. Marissa speaks to Sixto about Charles, or the jackal, who is a rich man. They talk about divorce before Nuria storms out. Osita Halcrow says he sanctioned the snatch. He learns that Norman Stoke was killed. Isabel Kirby and Osita agree that he was probably killed by the jackal. Isabel needs to sell this as a success story. Osita insists it is a success story. They're checking DNA and fingerprints found. Isabel wants to get Bianca and Vince back in London. Isabel says they need to make sure Bianca has the resources she needs for Operation Anubis. They agree to be careful until Carver has given 303 a clean bill of health. Osita receives a message from someone saying they need to talk. The message has UDC at the end. Damian Richardson watches him as he walks by. Vince and Bianca learn about the dead men. The local police have lifted multiple prints. The victim's phone is missing. Osita calls Bianca to tell her she needs to come back, and the operation to find the jackal will now be called Operation Anubis. Bianca wants to remain in Hungary because the jackal couldn't have gone far. Ulle Dag Charles goes for a swim. When he comes back, UDC speaks to Marjorie Marshall, who says their share price projection is down. UDC says he owns 51% of the stock. He's announcing River in 4 days, and it will be released on schedule on the 28th. UDC knows the board will try to stop River if anything happens to him. He asks his partner to make sure that doesn't happen. Keith Canvey checks out glass that is resistant to bullets. UDC tells everyone that River will be adjusted on the 28th. Keith and UDC argue about him pacing while giving his talk. UDC says he just does that. Keith insists they can't protect him if he does that. UDC complains about the free market. He insists River will change everything because it'll tell you where the money is going. Laszlo continues driving the jackal, who says he's sorry he came this morning. The jackal wishes he hadn't. Laszlo tells him he has a good man face. The jackal makes him stop moments later and keep his hands on the steering wheel. The jackal warns him that his colleagues will come to his house if anything happens to him. The jackal ends up leaving Laszlo alive. He calls Nuria and asks her to email him. Zina Jansson gets a message from the jackal. She warns him that her people are losing faith. The jackal promises he'll deliver. Edward Carver asks Damien why Bianca is so interested in Alexander Duggan. Damien says he's dead, although the MoD files have been redacted. Edward Carver accuses him of betraying his country because of money or sex. Damien denies everything. Nuria emails the jackal to say she's arrived. He tells her where to meet him. She meets him at the motel and brings his things. The jackal thanks her and tells her she should go. He believes he's involved her too much. Nuria hugs him and says he scared her. Later, she asks him why he needs a disguise. The jackal says people are looking for him and he needs to get out of there. Nuria asks if it's worth it. He says it was. The jackal puts on his nose. He arrives at the airport with his disguise. Nuria leaves him. Bianca and Vince are sitting nearby. Osita tells Isabel about UDC's upcoming speech. Since the UDC is going to be in Tallinn, the jackal will likely be there as well. Isabel agrees they should divert Bianca to Tallinn. Vince and Bianca receive the news moments later. The jackal waits on a plane. Of course, Bianca just happens to sit right in front of him. She tells Vince she hopes Osita is sending them to the right place. The jackal and the others arrive moments later. He gets into a taxi around the same time as Bianca. The jackal goes to his Airbnb while Bianca and Vince check into their rooms. The jackal takes off his disguise and brace. That night, the jackal gets a visit from police officers saying there was a burglary nearby. He shows them his ID, and they keep asking him questions. Before they go, the female officer asks for a phone number in case they need to get in touch with him. He gives them a number. She calls the number and his phone rings inside. Once he's alone, the jackal calls Rasmus and invites him out for a drink. Rasmus meets him at a pub moments later. They hang out and drink for a while. Eventually, they go back to a private place where they begin making out.